Hey guys, this will be video 6 for the how to build or how to restore a 1981 Gibson E2 CMT for the curly maple top uh, Explorer. And if you're just tripping up on this video series, I spent a little bit of time talking about the guitar on the very front end, but for the most part, this video series is primarily for the client to see the progress of the job come together. But I have a tendency, as I mentioned in one of the last videos, kind of a creature of habit. I start trying to talk about everything that I've done. So it's just kind of in my nature to not try to be a show-all or tell-all, but I'm more comfortable just talking about the mechanics behind why or how I did something. And so it comes off as I'm like trying to teach you all how to do something when for the most part, most guys, you don't need me telling you how to glue a block of wood on a hill. But for the most part, getting myself back on track, I want to make certain I spend some time talking about some additional options that kind of surfaced for the client. So Eric, this is what I meant by, let me do a video tomorrow and I'll talk about some of the things that have surfaced because when he saw the guitar coming together, he began to see it a little bit differently and ask my opinion of things. And that's awesome. I love that. I love that interaction of the client getting involved in either making suggestions or asking for suggestions and opinions and stuff like that. So, and I almost kind of knew that was going to happen with this project. And where I'm going is on the very, very front end, I had made the statement, if you want, we've got the option of building this body out of maple and with a maple top, just like they would have done in 1981. And because I knew the tobacco burst atop the Mahogany, Honduran Mahogany, was going to be a little bit different guitar than if it's atop the maple that is got some pretty serious chocolate stain work into the maple before they even start shooting the nitrocellulose lacquer. And with that said, different species, different stains, different it's tough to get two different items like that to match really well unless you go dark, because the darker you go, well, you can conceal anything. Obviously black will conceal poplar body, maple neck, etc., mahogany body, maple neck. But if we start doing too much accent type sunburst work or burst work, it'll be tough to conceal the fact, or virtually impossible to conceal the fact, that these two components are completely different species. And you might be thinking, well, that's kind of a given. Well, yeah, it is, especially once you actually see them coming together. Now, I'm not saying anything is, I'm not, I don't have, what's the word? Well, I guess I could just say it's irrelevant at this point because there's still a lot of work to do. Indifferent is the word. I would say I'm indifferent, but I'm not indifferent because I know I'm not going to be able to get this neck light enough for it to be sexy blending into this body, which is really beautiful. But the thing, let's just talk about this neck for a second. The issue with the neck, this is just very basic hard maple. It's just the bare bones, just maple with a capital M, and that's about it, which is exceptional wood. But it was never intended to, be really beautiful. Whereas, like, and I'm not going to grab any, but and I don't have one in here, but like I've built a lot of necks before with either like a bird's eye or a little, mostly just bird's eye, because I don't trust curly maple on a neck. It's too soft. But if you have maple that has some figure to it, as long as it's a hard maple, then you can start coming in and doing some really interesting things with like really light middle section, darker up here, darker down there, things like that. But this neck, especially the fact that this neck has been completely rebuilt with a completely different species of wood right here, I would never attempt to try to do anything where any of this was semi-transparent. Okay, so, and we'll talk about this neck a little bit more in a moment, but for the most part, I just wanted to present one of the things that came to me as I was beginning to put this together. And the first thing I saw was, and I've already kind of covered it. Let me get around the guitar. Okay, so we know that's our initial target. I still got about, I'm only about 90% there right now. Still got a lot of shape work to do. But the fact that this is mahogany, this is maple, any color work that goes on here has got to be very dark to conceal that. This has got to be very dark right here. So once you're really dark right here, you can't automatically just go straight up to light. So as I was building this project, I was always under I always had the plan. Eventually, this sides of this guitar are going to be virtually almost blacked out so much that you can barely see the semi-transparency. There might be a little bit of transparency there, but for the most part, I knew that once we came into this body, then we could really let some of this in here shine through, but not in this red mahogany. It would still be kind of the walnut brown color, but just semi-transparent so you could see down into the guitar as it is. And you could see, wow, that's true Honduran mahogany. It'd be very similar to your SG, with the real dark, the chocolate. I would say more of like the chocolate tobacco rather than like the true Honduran here. So, but it prompted me to consider, okay, let's say for instance that Eric all of a sudden said, I don't really care about the whole idea of the sunburst stuff or the whole tobacco burst thing on the back, because man, I love this mahogany so much. I really, now that I see it, I want to continue to see it. Well, don't deny your client that if that's what they truly want, but also be bold enough to let them know it's going to clash pretty hard if we stay too light with this body. And obviously, Eric was not requesting any of this stuff, but I just want to make certain that I let him know I'm thinking along these lines of, okay, what would it look like if this neck were chocolate? Kind of like this color right in here that we see, the pretty dark, semi-transparent chocolate. It's kind of hard to find it up here because this neck had been had received a little bit of black up there, so most of that is probably going to get sanded out and it'll be much darker. But I got to think. I thought, what would it look like if this neck were just kind of chocolate, and maybe it was a little bit light in here, but not terribly light, but probably similar to that area right there, and then go into this body that stays in the deep Honduran mahogany family. When I say deep, I'm talking like much deeper, darker, richer, obviously some tobacco in it, especially on the sides a little bit. But how would you pull that off? So I say that to say this. The only way you could probably pull that off is if you changed. Wow, that's amazing. I landed right on it. Let's see if I can get this in the camera. This is so important because this will help me see it as well as the client. Probably somewhere in that neighborhood right there. The way you could pull it off if you were truly going to do two different stain colors, like a darker chocolate neck into a pretty deep, rich Honduran mahogany body, you would definitely need to do a defined transition or stepped heel. And if anything, that's actually more historically accurate than doing the flush heel. So it would not be a mistake at all. And again, this is not something that Eric had asked me about, but it's one of those things that I mentioned to him. So, I kind of saw something that I wanted to present in video form so we could both look at it. Even I'm not there yet, but when I say dark chocolate, it would be the maple would be, it'd be pretty dark. It would be darker than the mahogany. So, and it would be different. That's the only thing that spooks me, because the whole thing about this guitar, I got a couple of pictures of a true 1981 where someone had laid it on their sofa and took some really incredible pictures from the back. And the whole back of the guitar is very, very dark. It's almost completely, it's almost not transparent at all. However, Eric had sent me some pictures on the very front end of a guitar that I think was out in Vegas in a music store. It was that guitar, the 1981 Tobacco Burst. It was on a music stand. They took some pictures from the back. It was a maple body, but you definitely could see through it. It was semi-transparent, and it had the fogging on the back, but it was pretty much blacked out on the sides. What we do up here is irrelevant right now. So, with that said, I just want to let you know, Eric, I'm not there yet. We're not there yet. However, if you're thinking in the back of your mind now that you've seen this Honduran that you kind of want to keep seeing this Honduran, we got two different options we could take here. We could do exactly what I just said with this neck. It's always going to be darker, and then I would just be working with the spray gun to define the burst and all that, so it's complementary. Or we could do a complete 180, and I could build a Honduran mahogany neck with an ebony fretboard, and and go from there. In other words, build a guitar even out of the wood that I have left over, so that it would be a completely custom guitar. So it's an option. It would be additional, but then we're sitting there going, well, what do we do with this neck? Well, at least we've got this amount of work done with that neck. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to throw you a real hard 180 curveball, and I'm not saying it's something that I'm wanting to do. I'm just saying that before I glue this baby into something, then I want you to have those options there. So let me check the time. Okay, 11 minutes and 45 seconds of a whole bunch of curveballs. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind, Eric. And I don't mean to, overload you with that. If it were my situation, I would say let's just keep building this guitar right here. And but I will need you to let me know if you truly like this flushed heel in the back, then this is going to have to be pretty dark for it to especially right up in this area. I'm not talking about just right here. It's going to have to be pretty dark up in here, and the only thing that's really semi-transparent is probably kind of, come in about 2.5 inches all the way around, 3 inches up here. It would just be this middle part kind of up in here that would be transparent. This would all pretty much be blacked out with like the real deep chocolate. And quite frankly, man, it would be stunning. It would be really beautiful. And again, still do the tobacco burst on the front over the golden amber antique, really beautiful front that looks basically identical to the pictures. Possibly right there at the last, attach the black pick guard, or maybe we love it without the pick guard. As I've already clarified, that's an afterthought, but it was important to have to define the body footprint. So not to try to throw you too many curveballs there, but when we're at this point, if I glue this neck in, which I'm actually ready to glue the neck in now, so this is something I would need to know fairly quickly, because this will really keep the job on track. But if we glue the neck in like this right here, then I'm going to be very adamant about, no, this is the project. Let's stay chocolate. Let's stay tobacco. Let's finish this guitar. And then it'll be beautiful. But however, we wouldn't have to necessarily, well, let me back up. We won't know until we get there. But if we're thinking about doing something really radical, I would say we need to create that stepped heel, which would cause me to need to cut off about 3/16 of an inch. And then once you cut off the full 3/16 of an inch right there, it would then widen. Okay, this distance from here to here right now is 11/16 of an inch. And if I cut it off and drop down, most of you guys already know where I'm going with this, but if I cut it down to say right here, then it's going to get considerably out of proportion, and I will need to reshape the entire heel. I'm not saying it's difficult, but it's something that would have to be done so that once it is a stepped heel, it steps with that same exact profile right there, which is a little bit different from what I'm holding here. See, this is like my typical 59, But since this is a double cutaway, you always want to have that flat on either side, and then that flat makes a really beautiful transition into the flat of the body. So obviously you might look at that and go, wow, well, that's not your template at all. Now it is the template, but it's pushed over about 1/8 of an inch on that side for that side, and then I push it over about 1/8 of an inch on that side to do the continuation. And then it's called the spring. Like if you have a door or an archway where the leg of the door goes up, and then at the head of the door it has an arched top, whether it is a segment top or a half round top or something like that, or lips, that's called the spring once it starts arcing. So this actually does have a spring which starts about 1/4 of an inch up. Okay, and then after you get the guitar glued together, then you can shape just a little bit more if you want to, but you never want to lose that flat. Okay, so hope I didn't confuse you there, but just excuse me, I hope I didn't confuse you there, but just kind of keep that in mind, Eric. If well, I've already said it, so if not, just feel free to give me a call, man, and we can talk about it. But I just want to make certain that we're both on the same page still. And again, if it were my choice, I would say let's stay with our original design, so that this neck doesn't end up getting shelved again and not used, because it is a very good neck. I've already tested the truss rod and all that stuff. As far as dimensionally, man, it feels like a Gibson, So I would say, if you're cool with it, let's stay in the chocolate tobacco family and just darken this body up. So, but if not, if you were going to change your mind, now's the time to do it. But I need to know fairly quickly so I can get that neck either reshaped and glued in, or either not shaped but glued in. And when I say glued in, I mean epoxied in. And I won't go into that other than Eric and I already, when I did his SG, we had a deep conversation about, should we glue it in with tight bond versus epoxy, and he was like, no, I agree, let's go with the epoxy. So if you're cool with it, Eric, I will glue this one in with the epoxy. But this joint is so precise, it would probably sound, as I said earlier in the last video, would probably sound just as good if we glued it in with a tight bond. So couldn't go wrong either way there. Okay, so I talked a little bit about, in the last video, I was just doing some sanding and whatnot and getting ready to move into some lacquer sealing and all that jazz. And I got a few little circular scratches I found right there that I got to work out. But for the most part, it was sanded up to a 400 grit. And then I hand brushed 2 individual coats of nitrocellulose lacquer. And you can only brush 2 coats, because in your second coat, you will definitely begin to get brush marks. In your first coat, you're able to brush it pretty thick, and that wood just really soaks in all that nitrocellulose lacquer. So if you do your seal work with a brush, then you're basically going to be getting like 5 sprayed coats in one application, because it's like a sponge. It's just soaking in all of that nitrocellulose lacquer. But once you get to the second coat, you've got to compartmentalize it, and you've got to brush just this part up here and keep the brush marks very straight and very linear, because you're definitely going to want to come in now and pretty much take a lot of that down. That's 120, but I'm not putting any pressure at all. But I want to see those brush marks disappear. Why? Because this is just a sealer. Okay, I typically would just use a 220 on that, but anyway, so I do the full perimeter, and then when I come back here to the back, this is where you got to be real careful about overlap. I'm talking about the second coat. You can still brush the second coat, but you've got to be very wet and move in one direction and then leave it alone. Let it start leveling. Move down to the next stripe, paint that stripe, leave it alone, let it settle. Don't start trying to paint it. You'll have horrific brush marks and overlap. But as you can see, I did a pretty darn good job with this. So and I got some heavy coats of lacquer on there, and you can actually hear it. I'm telling you, as you build your lacquer coats, you can hear the wood, you can just hear the tone get more centered, focused, clear. I think nitro cellulose lacquer atop a Honduran mahogany is probably the reason a vintage Les Paul or even a modern Les Paul sounds so incredible, is the nitro cellulose lacquer. It's such an incredible uh, product to seal the wood, and it's really beautiful as well. Okay, but after you do your second coat, you better not be brushing it after that. You'll get yourself in trouble, because at this point we got to, as you saw, sanding that with a 120 with almost no pressure, it's ready to start getting sprayed now. Okay. All right, so let's talk about this neck a little bit. And I so wanted to crank up the camera and capture all this, so let me slow down. I'll just show it a little bit, which it came together in about 2.5 hours, 100% shaped by hand. Did not do any router work at all, which I think was wise, as I've already covered in the first video. But it did reveal, one thing it did reveal right here, and I kind of knew this was going to happen. This neck has had, and that right there, you might think that's a putty. It's actually not. It's where one of the screws were in, like somebody had mounted it like a Stratocaster, like a bolt-on neck. And that was like the old screw location hole, half of it. And that might look like putty, but it's not. That's a piece of maple that is glued in with a heavy CA glue. So it was glued in under pressure, then shaped. However, right here, I didn't think this one was going to show, but it did show a little bit. That's and it looks like a product called Durham's Rock Hard. I've done a lot of restorations and commercial contractor type work. If that's Durham's Rock Hard, that's fine. That's an incredible product, and it won't show. So I left that alone, rather than trying to drill into that and plug it with a stick, and then that stick shrinks a year from now. It would end up being worse. So if that Durham's has been in there for that long and it never had shown before, then it's a very good product. And so anyway, once it all went together, I wasn't really concerned about attractiveness at all, because I just wanted the form and the shape of a well, actually it's just sheer bliss. Feels incredible. And what is it? It's just really my profile that I've already built, and it's very, very similar to like your 59, but it's really based more so on a Robert Benedetto jazz guitar heel. That's what I saw from him, although he was making his heels a little bit more narrow, quite a bit more narrow. This is 11/16 of an inch from this edge here to that edge there, but once it's finished, I started out about 3/4 of an inch. Did all the machine work, gave me room to screw up and work my way down to the finish line. Even once I had the neck peeled pretty much completely shaped, I was actually pretty far away from it. I was close to a 1/16 of an inch wider. We'll say it was about that much still too big in relation to this little template here, which is 11/16 of an inch from here to there. But that, again, that's finished. You couldn't start out with that. It'd be very unlikely that you would hit that target, because by the time you're in here doing heavy rasp shaping and whatnot with your little micro rasp, it still leaves some real nasty scars and scratches in there that you have then got to be able to come in. And believe it or not, this is 120. But as long as you're not doing circular, as long as you're just truly working with the grain, 120 will get you fairly smooth. And then I finished it up with a 220. And am I happy with it? What's the word? Ecstatic. Love it. It feels incredible. It looks incredible. It looks like a Gibson. And what's really awesome, I've already shown it, but I'll show it again because I might not have captured it very well. This to me, this is probably one of the most important parts of building an Explorer or restoring an Explorer replica. or either restoring one, is making certain that these things are so hard to hold. Just making certain that you end up going into a flat and then define with the typical Gibson arc right there. And see, if you came in with this 59 profile, it's way too quick. It would still be a really attractive little heel. There's nothing wrong with it. But me personally, I think it starts compound radiusing way too fast. In other words, to me, this looks weak. I like the fact that it's just more square right there and right there. Okay. But it's one of those things, if you missed it, I don't think anybody's going to complain because they both would look really good. But that flat really defines it as the Gibson. Okay, and so I hope I drove that home enough. So I won't start talking about that anymore other than if we're doing any sort of finish work, I like the idea of this being pretty much blacked out. Not black, but like tobaccoed out, smoked out, so that you can't really see anything going on there. Because there's nothing worthy of being seen up under the nitro, because it's just it's a multi-piece conglomerate of a repaired neck, but it does look very good. And the cool thing was I was able to take this maple up just far enough to kind of fill in that little low spot right there, because I knew even if this ended up being semi-transparent from here up, I knew everything down here was going to be blacked out, so blended out really well. Okay, and I just checked the humidity and the temperature in my shop. I keep a gauges over there, and it is 66 degrees in my shop, and I have the humidity is 54%. So that's ideal for a custom guitar shop. Humidity and temperature. Again, it's this late summer, and I'm wearing a hoodie, so it's pretty cold down here. Okay, what else? Let me check the time. Let's see what else we should talk about. 27 minutes. This is the second time I've done this video, and I don't want to do it a third time, but I did get way too long-winded in the first video. And what sucks is when you erase a video and then you do it the second time, you get redundant and you're repetitive. And I apologize if I say something again, but I know I've already spoken about the heel enough, and I've already spoken about the dark colors enough. So probably all I'll do is just talk about how I kind of finish that heel, just for hypothetical reference. Where I'm going with this, like if you had a pick your poison aftermarket bolt-on neck, well, you probably have already started putting two and two together and realizing, I could buy a banana neck, and I could build this. I got some scrap mahogany laying around in here that I could build 10 of these. So could I turn my Fender Strat type Eddie Van Halen hockey stick neck into an Explorer neck? And 100% with absolute ease as far as material, and I've already shown you the whole process of what I did. So if you're building this body, it doesn't matter what's going on in this footprint. I've already covered this 1,000 times. Down the center, it's just a Gibson product, or I should say, it's just a 24 3/4 inch set neck design with a two degree pitched neck. Okay? Whatever footprint you put out here, that's totally your call. So with that said, when you're building your body, you don't really have to worry about where this fret is or where that fret is, or if this is a 25.5 inch scale or a 24 3/4, and on and on and on. All those variables. And one guy made a statement once in one of my listings, because I have an eBay store where I sell all my guitars and parts on from time to time. And you could tell he was a typical armchair warrior, and he chimed in and was like, "There's no way you can put that neck on an Explorer body." And he's like, "The scale ain't gonna work, blah blah blah." And in a real nice way, I said, it's irrelevant, whether you put that 19th fret directly over that joint. Let's take the fretboard off of it. And wherever you put your fretboard based on your lower, as long as you have room up here, well, then what's the difference? If you change the 24 3/4 inch scale body to a 25 1/2 inch or a 25 inch scale guitar or a 25 1/2 inch, well, it's only going to require that you have a little bit longer lower in order to receive that nut in the correct location. If this is a 24 3/4, which it is, well, that's the nut location. If this is a 25 1/2 inch scale guitar, well, that's still the nut location. But because now the distance from the nut to the 19th fret are different, somewhere in here, this lower neck has got to lengthen. And that's all you're working with. You're just working for, and we all call that the speaking length. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm digressing a little bit, but it would have been just as easy if I had have received a neck from Eric that was, just like a Kramer neck. I could have done the exact same thing. You guys already know that. So, however, what I failed to mention in that last video when I was talking about how running this across the table saw, which that's exactly what I did. I had this large square block of maple that went all the way up to there, and I had already drawn the cross section of that arc right there, and on both sides. And then it was just a matter of I took my masking tape, put masking tape right here, used my CA glue, and I CA glued that down to there. I'd be willing to bet you that's 100% perfectly perpendicular, square, true, all that jazz. So that now I was able to go over to my table saw with the fence and just, even though this is a little bit thinner right here than this, and you run the risk of tipping, you're not trying to cut all the way up to paper thin. I cut it up. I left about 1/8 of an inch in there. And then I just did gradual relief cuts. I didn't even leave any material in there. I just eased the blade over about 1/8 of an inch in each cut. And then as the blade was coming across, I started dropping the height of the blade as I was just simply pushing the fence in 1/8 of an inch at a time, and probably made, I don't know, maybe 15 cuts. And then at that point, I had the completely arced out area, but then I still had all the S4S square on this side. Then I took it over to my oscillating sander. Didn't even refasten this. I just held it by hand. And I got to tell you, if you guys get a chance, go ahead and build one of these. This is one of the most incredible little jigs to hold and just do work with. So obviously, now I was able to go over to my oscillating table, and just by hand and looking down, I was able to very, very gradually feather this down so close that if I had have sneezed, I ran the risk of screwing up. But I was able to take out every bit of that material so that if I so chose, I very easily could have put this in my jig, and I could have just routed that out. But as I mentioned in the last video, I didn't want to screw up a neck trying to save 30 minutes of handwork. And also, I'm a firm believer that every now and then pull your hand tools out there and put your money where your mouth is. And if you're truly a guitar builder or a furniture builder or any sort of custom woodworker, you should be 100% comfortable coming in here from a physical standpoint and a visual eye-to-hand coordination. You should be able to see your target and actually shape up to it very closely with your small hand tools. And to me, that's some of the most rewarding parts of building a guitar. Actually, I say that to say this. I know beyond a shadow of doubt, and I've always said this, the most rewarding part of building a guitar is shaping this heel by hand and shaping this flare up on like a Les Paul custom replica or something like that, or like a big body jazz guitar where you're flaring into the headstock. To me, that's the most incredibly rewarding part, where you're physically turning it into a beautiful guitar. or like a furniture leg or something like that. So you guys that are furniture builders, and because I'm not a furniture builder, I've never really I never had the setup for that. You got to have some really, really high quality, large machinery to do quality furniture building, but not so with musical instrument building. So anyway, very rewarding, and it was really cool to see it come together and just be able to feel it turning to a guitar. And I know if I'm happy with it, and I'm not a big guy, but I've got a pretty good reach. I don't have any fat on my hands, but even if I was real chunky, stocky hands, you'd still have incredible reach and a very comfortable thumb position right there. Okay, so there you have it. So anyway, I did that initial shaping, and then once I had that right there, probably bar none, the most important thing to do is, and the way I did it was actually I came in and put some blue tape across there to force myself to stay up into this territory right here, so that I didn't run the risk of losing any of that little flat right there, because it is micro thin, and one hiccup, and well, it wouldn't have mattered in this one because it's going to get blacked out, but if you were trying to do a visual guitar, yeah, that'd get you in trouble. All right, let me check the time, because I kind of feel like I'm just rambling here. 36, weird, so strange. It feels like it's like 45 minutes. Let me look at the table, see if there's anything worthy of talking about. I don't really think so. So I'll take advantage of the fact that it can be a short video, but I feel like I got to cover enough for Eric to make a decision as to whether we want to build this guitar right here, or do we want to make a 180 turn, shell that neck, build a custom guitar. It's all Honduran mahogany. I'm just throwing those curveballs out there because, it would be a shame for Eric to have said, probably in hindsight, I should have not done. And it was like, oh, crap, man, I had all the wood over there. It was from the same board. And please, Eric, read between the lines. I'm not saying that's what I want to do. And if reading between the lines, I really don't want to do that. I'd rather just, build the guitar that we always wanted to build, because I know it will be beautiful, even though right now they don't really look much alike at all. I really think once it goes together as a guitar, whether it has a flush heel or a stepped heel, it's not going to be a mistake. Either guitar is going to be really beautiful. But we don't want it to be, two-tone. Okay. All right. So there you have it. Or to finish what I was just saying, I just did. By putting these two together, I would. In other words, let me back up. I'm sorry, guys. I should have clarified this. There's no way I would have allowed Eric to allow me to build this body out of this Honduran mahogany unless I knew that eventually down the line I was going to be able to do the nitrocellulose lacquer work, so that it was going to be a really beautiful guitar. And obviously looking at it from the front, and we've already seen it from the front, which to me, again, it's just so striking. But it's really interesting with a project like this. So we'll just kind of, if you're still here, you're obviously kind of a geek like me. When you got a project like this, man, what goes on the front with this ebony 1981 board, and obviously the original, let's do that flyby that I always do. This is a kick-ass guitar. I mean, it's absolutely stunning. And I'm not just saying that to say that. Let me see if I can grab without dropping it. But beautiful guitar. I hope I'm not too close to the camera, so I'll back up a little bit. But with that said, and even Eric and I had this game plan on the front end. Okay, we're going to use that pick guard to make sure certain that we define this footprint. We've already covered that. However, we're going to change gears, and we're going to finish this guitar as a custom guitar, but based very, very closely on the the number 74 1981 Gibson CMT that's online. Diablo amps. Search 1981 Gibson CMT E2 Explorer Diablo amps. You'll find some of the best pictures you've ever seen of this guitar, or that guitar right there. And this one's number 7, that one's number 74. So when you see the front of that guitar, it's just off the charts beautiful. Everything about, and it has this exact bridge, the TP6, which was designed by, is it Randall Wall? Well, oh gosh, I forgot his name, but I did the research on the first. And then the Shaler that Eric is providing. So everything about what we're building here is going to, we can compartmentalize it, and we can build that exact guitar on the front, or we don't have to do the tobacco burst nearly as heavy on that one, because we've got a full, we're not trying to conceal anything, is where I'm going with this. So, and that's what I meant. I've always mentioned to Eric, well, I'm not really there yet, or once we get there, we got plenty of time. Once we get there, then I'll show you some samples and stuff like that. And then, but I already see the depth and the amber and the antique vintage look of the color. I already know, I already see it, and it's deep, dark, rich. But once you turn it in the light, all this flame will just start coming alive, man. It will come alive. And we all know that because we've done this enough. But whatever we do up here, it can be treated separate from the back and the sides, is what I'm saying. And so with that vision in mind, we'll just flip it over and ask ourselves what's going to look best. I really like the idea of just staying pretty chocolate dark on the sides and the back. But it is a beautiful piece of mahogany. And I'll just recap what I said. And I know this is going to be redundant. If we did decide to leave this, I'm not going to say, to me, right, what we see here, this is too light. It's pretty, it's really nice, but it's too light. But if we do leave it any sort of lightness at all, I definitely want to step this heel. But me personally, if we're going to do the chocolate tobacco guitar, which I really, really, really want to do, I say we stay with this flushed heel, because that's a very difficult heel to build. And the reason they step these heels in the SGs and the guitars like that, or like the Les Paul Juniors and stuff like that, they're, well, hell, even in the traditional Les Paul as well, when they step those heels like there, I mean, it's attractive, but it makes for a much easier build, a much, much easier build, because you're not blending surfaces together. Okay, so I know that was I probably repeated that 3, if not 4 times, so I apologize if anyone's sitting there pulling their hair out waiting for me to talk about something differently. But again, this video is kind of like for me to just talk off the top of my head for Eric to make some decisions by, okay, looking at the table, going once, going twice. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So I appreciate you guys dropping in, and I'll leave it at that. I think, yeah, there's really nothing else to talk about. So I appreciate you guys dropping in, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.